Hello and welcome back to Hacking Pro Tips number 16. Today I have the honor to sit down with one of India's greatest, Bull, who is very active on HackerOne as well as BugCrowd. And the stats are phenomenal. And I think, honestly, I probably should have done this interview earlier because you've found some amazing bugs. You've shared some pretty cool things. But like most impressively, just looking at your HackerOne page right now, your signal is near perfect, 96th percentile, 6.36. Impact, again, 97th percentile at 26. And the reputation is 1242. And that's on HackerOne with 42 bugs found across 10 programs. But more impressively, over on BugCrowd, like you're ranking at 112 all time. Your average severity is 2.81. So for those that aren't aware, the lower the severity, the better the bugs. So that's really cool. Accuracy, again, almost near perfect with 98 point, almost 6. 98.95, and then the number of vulnerabilities, you're coming close to 100 there with 94. And one of the cool things is you can actually see how many bugs that you've been reporting per quarter, which is super awesome. So, I mean, on that note, thank you for taking the time. I know it's nighttime there for you. It's daytime here for me. It's about a 10-hour difference or close to it.
Thank you.
On behalf of everyone, thanks for sitting down to share your knowledge.
Thank you. It's an honor.
On that note, I'm really curious. You and I were kind of talking before we started recording this, and there's stuff that I really want to dig into. I've got so many questions to ask. But how did you get started hacking? Like you started in 2016. Can you tell us how it came about?
Yeah. So it was my college time, and my friends at college started to talk about hacking. So they were also talking about some hacking tools which would hack into anything, something like that. And then so it also like I started to dig about hacking. I was like, what? And then I started to dig about hacking. So I found out that like these tools hacking were like some kind of fake hacking. Not really you are breaking, you are just using tools. And so I also read more, and in the meantime I also discovered HackerOne and BugCrowd. So I decided to not to use tools and learn about hacking. Uh, so and then I started to read books. So I was completely unaware where to start from. So I started with a binary exploitation book. It was The Art of Exploitation, John Erickson. Yeah. So I was doing mining engineering. So I did not have any computer background. So all I knew was how to write a hello world program in C. I learned in my college and few loops. So starting with that book, I learned C, and I decided to stick on pages till I don't understand them. And then I continued to the second chapter, which was a buffer overflow. So then I saw how the first parameter flow overflowed the second parameter to trick the if-else statement. And I was like, what is going on? I never knew computers can behave like this. And I was completely surprised. I could not sleep. And then I saw the HackerOne. So it was not something I read about. The people were reporting over there. So it was mostly web bugs, web technology bugs. So I decided to read another book, which was Web Hacker's Handbook, and then a yearbook as well. So it was a great book. It was the only purchase I made at the starting. So I decided not to use the scanners. Even I was not rich at that time, so I did not even use the crack version, because these kind of things has helped me in my when I used to do science. I don't used to remember the more things, and not remember all formulas. I used to derive it on spot. so it has helped me solve more complex problems. So yeah, I decided to go it that way. And then slowly I learned every like web technology. So instead of using Burpsuite Pro, I made my own JavaScript intruders. Yeah, it was a slow process. I very slowly learned. Yeah, it used to look like very very fuzzy how these things were working at first. I could not understand when it was like what JavaScript, JSON request, something like that was going instead of simple uh, form data. Yeah, it was very confusing at first, and then I really slowly getting feel of everything. I decided to stuck on things until I don't understand them. So then, yeah, instead of using the Burpsuite Pro, I made my own JavaScript intruders, which would fetch new CSRF tokens and then brute force the IDOR, because every time it required a new CSRF token, or unless the request won't be processed. So yeah, it took me like 4 or 5 months, and then I reported a couple of $900 bugs to Mastercard. Yeah, it was 2, 3 $900 bugs. So I knew what I was doing. So at that point, my friends till then they skipped to entrepreneurship and something. So I decided to stick with the technical because this is what I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I moved of the city and then dropped my college and got into full-time hacking.
Man, that's there is so much there to unpack. That's an awesome story. I love that. What really resonated for me too was like when I started, I remember when I was going after HackerOne, and maybe it wasn't to the same extent, but like there was Ajax calls and kind of like stuff going on in the background. And I knew about that kind of stuff, but I didn't appreciate what was actually happening. Like I didn't wrap my head around it. And so I can completely relate to that. Like that whole exploratory phase where you're trying to figure out kind of what's going on, how does this work. I find it really cool that you went and you decided to kind of build your own stuff and you just took the time to learn everything, like make sure you knew it before you continued on. I'm really curious, how did you retain the knowledge? Like when you went from the books, like I've started reading The Art of Exploitation, and I've started it a few different times. And this last time was like, I'm not moving to another page unless I fully understand it. The same way that you were saying you wanted to grasp everything. But when I sit down to then kind of exploit a buffer overflow or like work on CTFs and stuff, I realize that I don't really understand it. I've read everything, but I can't apply it. How did you go from that, from reading the books to then applying what you were reading?
So it was like when I was coding C from the very first chapter. So I was completely doing exactly what I was trying to copy them, and very much spend time like a day or two at one thing. So it was quite confusing how it was like. Dealing with even a single byte at first, the C program, and then I just overdo it. I don't used to sleep. I don't used to go to college. I don't used to give exams because I was at that time already not. I did not want to go to the college. I was already frustrated, so I had to put my full time, full energy into it. I wanted to do that. So and then like I don't think I can exploit the CTF bugs, but I can understand the very simple scenario of a buffer overflow. So it was very much starting. So I think I grasped it, and I can understand a very simple program and a very simple debugging uh, stuff over a very simple program. But I don't think I can exploit CTF, but I'm quite like, yeah.
Yeah, I completely get what you're saying. And that makes a lot of sense because those few times where I've gone to like work on CTFs or like even like,
Completely fresh.
Sorry?
I'm completely fresh to computers, but I could understand the C a bit and then how it was working.
Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, I never knew that computers can behave like this. That was quite surprising. Yeah, I would love get back to those things and take another recap and sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious on that note. Is there anything looking back now that you know that you wish you knew when you started, or is there anything that was kind of like that stuck out to you that you went back to and tested it and things clicked?
So most of the things I can think of are that would really even me would have helped me find bugs are experience related. So I don't think that there's like direct something that I can tell that would benefit me or someone to find bugs directly. Most of the things I can specifically think of and that helps me find bugs are very much uh, experience related.
Right. Kind of exposure to different technologies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
uh, taking the understanding the patterns. Yeah.
that makes sense. So once you ended up going full time, it sounds like you kind of had a few bugs, you got your feet under you, you were
Yeah.
comfortable in what you were doing. What's that been like since you've gone full time? Do you feel pressured to find bugs? Or like you just mentioned, you have the ability to kind of, if you need to sit back and learn something, like you can do that.
So yeah, it was no pressure. I was I was doing what I like, and I was reading, and I could even one two bugs would work for me at first. And yes, uh, uh, my brother was already doing job where I moved to,
Yeah.
and I had no family pressure or something, so I
Okay.
could like yeah. Uh,
And
do it full time without worrying anything, without worrying about anything. Yeah.
I want to jump in on that because when you and I were talking about doing the HackerOne events remotely, you were doing it with your brother. And so you got him into hacking, right?
Oh yeah. So when I left my college, I moved to my brother. So he was doing computer. He have a computer degree, and he was doing a job related to computer. So I got him into hacking. Taught him what I knew, and the rest he could read about things, and I could help him out. And he was it's like it was much more money than any job in India for my brother as well. So he decided to quit it as well and do it with me. So till from that time we're doing it together. We're sharing ideas, and yeah, we were together at 4 and 5. We were hacking at the same target, sitting around. Yeah, so we were like hacking together
Do
till
you
then.
guys do you guys ever like just so at the event you were hacking together, but do you ever hack together just regularly doing different things?
Uh, so most of the time we are targeting different targets and just help out each other. So whenever we are stuck, when we have a doubt about the thing that may would work, but is not working, we discuss it, and sometimes it work. And most of the time we are discussing things, hacking different targets. Other than like events like H1415, we are hacking on the same target, sharing more knowledge about the same target, helping each other. Yeah.
So, man, there's so many questions that I want to ask that just came to mind. I don't know which avenue to go down. But so one of the things I'm really curious about, and so you are obviously the first hacker from India that I'm interviewing for Hacking Pro Tips. And that's not for a lack of trying. Others have turned down the opportunity for various reasons. But I think it's really cool that you did this. And you mentioned kind of like how much money you're making and what that is like in relation to India. But I'm also curious, like, you have amazing stats, right? And so because you can make good money out of hacking, which kind of can go a long way in India, like what stopped you from going after like the little bugs to make a couple $100 and focusing on the big bugs that have made you a couple $1,000?
Oh yes. It was like at first I used to enjoy all the bugs because it was starting and every bug was like wow. Even a small privilege escalation within an organization, and then suddenly I got a little bored of those bugs. And I don't like do testing like fuzz everything, put payload everything. I'm not doing that from the very start. Sometimes job would have mentioned in the Twitter that go after a specific bug type and bug and uh, it would might be more beneficial. So
Mm-hmm.
I think uh, I've been hacking like that from the very start. So I would rather when I it was starting, so I would like concentrate on the maybe small bugs, but I was like concentrated within the organization to escalate myself, and I encountered very weird bugs like one application. I signed up another account over an existing account, and it did not issue me another cookie. So I had the previous person and the new privileges of admin, and so it was like I'm too much into the application most of the times, and I noticed the weird bugs, and slowly like it stopped for me to. It got me a little boring for to fuzz things and look for small bugs. So I rather started to spend days to just to uh, find interesting surface. So uh, I don't want bugs and I'm not happy with that. So I would rather wait for a month and then have a bug which would really be like make me happy. And so I used to like spend days on having searching for surface, reading documentation and going things and like uh, have weird things in front of me like 10K bug that doing weird things uh, and how I can exploit it. I'm thinking all along the way. So it's like and so I'm and now like I'm targeting most of the critical bugs at first when I go to the target. So I would like uh, have the intention to break into the internal networks only, and I would not do the much fuzzing, but I would look for all the surface, go anywhere for the SSRF or or if that not works, I would jump like uh, only the next high impact thing I have in mind for that very specific application. So like cross account attacks or something, I would rather try to if it has very much so many numeric IDs or if even if it's encrypted, leaking it somewhere, I would try to I would try to steal data from another account. So most of the like I want high bugs, high impact bugs. So I don't feel I find small bugs, I hold them. I hold them to try to find even more impactful, chain them. I don't go report them straight away. I would rather I'm most of the time I don't even enjoy reporting them. I would wait and then like when I find high impact bugs, I would report them. So it's like I just enjoy going after them and just that's what I have the high for them. I feel very high when I find them. So that's what I'm working for and like I want them. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, to be honest, that's amazing. one of the things that I struggle with is like, you mentioned kind of like you would go a month and like if you don't find that critical, you don't find it. But then
Yeah.
when you do, it's
So
like,
I want to talk about this like last month. So I would rather I would want to find a new type of bug which I haven't found before. I would work like last month. I found XXC and a bug in PayPal. Both were big. So one was at a small paying program. So one private one, XXC, was a small paying program, small reward, and the another one is Strike. So after that, I haven't found a bug for like a month, uh, and then I was almost like concentrated to find another big bug. I don't feel like going after them another small bug. I could have found it by going to much of the application. I have much of time. I'm doing it full time. So maybe a small application I would have gone on, and maybe I had 2 3 bugs. So, but I did not want that, and then I straight away had that 2x multiplier bug. I recently found even after a month like that. So, like that's how I go. I know it feels down sometimes.
yeah.
You when you don't you feel like demotivated.
Hmm.
So it's all like internal mind games your mind tell you, and someone rejected your reports, and then you are almost demotivated of the target. So I would rather chill, relax, and wait any of the target to get my motivation back. And when I think when I attack with the full motivation, I find like big bugs most of the time. I'm not finding, even if I'm doing full time, my profile don't look like I'm doing full time. I'm not finding as much bugs, but just by 6 7 bugs on an average in a month, I'm making huge rewards, huge money. Yeah.
So I love that. I love the fact that you brought up the motivation and the fact that like it can be killer when you're not finding things, or even like when you get something that's kind of like marked as a duplicate or not applicable or what have you. Where like when you get demotivated, what gets you like? How do you get back in the motivation? How do you keep that mindset or refresh that mindset?
So actually, when this happens, when you are very much overdoing something, so it might happen in every work. You don't want to do it anymore for a short term. Like I don't want to fuzz all endpoints or something. I'm not in that mood. So I'm already motivated. I have duplicates just recently. So I keep on reading. Sometimes I relax. So I know this is very much. So at first affected me when I started bug bounty, but then now like I'm just surfing application, reading document. I'm just looking for something interesting to get, and then suddenly some article comes up, and that like really motivates me of finding something like that. And even if I'm so like I find it motivating, some article or some kind of surface. So I just wait to get my motivation back, and then when I like have it, even if I'm not finding something similar to that article I just recently read that motivated me, but I find something new. I could use that to change things, or I could use it to like it helps me in any way, but it does like help out me. Yeah.
I thank you for being so transparent about it. I mean, just talking to you right now, I find it motivating because I definitely go through that trough, and I'm trying to figure out like what the best way is to deal with it. So it's cool to hear that, and it's really cool to hear kind of like the perspective of like focusing and kind of like applying what Jobert's talking about on Twitter and looking for the criticals and just focusing on that, and providing high value for companies. I think that's really cool. So I want to switch gears a little bit. You mentioned it as well, that you kind of found some bugs on MasterCard, and I did see the tweet about being #1 on MasterCard. What was that like? MasterCard's not an easy target. Like, they're a financial company. You think their security would be huge. What was it like to be #1 on their bug bounty program?
So yes, it was my very first program when I started bug bounty. So it was like I found one or two interesting bug, and that motivated me a lot. And then meanwhile, I signed up also on the regular account instead of the sandbox account, and that opened me off the huge surface. I saw things other would not have seen in the sandbox, and then I found a couple of more bugs out there. I reached new places, and it was like I could imagine, like I was using the MasterCard card myself, and it was like I was it did not let me sleep at first. I was hacking MasterCard. It felt very good. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's and that is advice that I've heard in other interviews. It's something that I've internalized and I've done as well. And it's finding the real estate that other people aren't using, but that not necessarily like subdomains and asset discovery and all that kind of stuff. It's going into areas that other people wouldn't do. So in this case, it's getting the card and legitimately using it to identify new areas of attack.
Yes. So sometimes also happens is like companies adding new features, and then all the researchers are allowed to test on the sandbox application instead of the main application. So they have updated like the backend and not updated the front end. So the feature was not available on the sandbox application, and it was only the backend was updated, so I could read about their documentation and the new features. So it was like just to copy up the new link and paste it in the sandbox application, and the new areas coming up, and I found a lot of new bugs there. So no one reached those places because the UI was not updated. Yeah. So yeah, I do a lot of recon and just to understand the application and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's wicked. I want to emphasize that for other people. Like, people should reckon, like, that is a gold nugget right there. So hopefully other hackers are doing the same thing. Now, similarly, I thought this was really cool when I was watching this. The cross-site scripting on BugCrowd was a really cool bug. So was that something you were like actively looking for? Like, did you want to find a bug in BugCrowd, or was it just like, hey, I found this?
So this was like accidental bug. I was sleeping at night, 2 a.m. and some company paid me wrong on a bug. It was a Facebook OAuth bug. So I was like copying the link of the Facebook, their Overflow, and then pasting it in another tab in my phone. So it actually got pasted in front of the bugcrowd.com, and there was a locale parameter. So I was very sleepy, and a very weird page showed up. So I was like, what the heck is going on, and what the fuck is going on? But I never saw that page. So I just I woke up, went to my computer. I knew that something was reflecting, and it would be at least a cross-site scripting. And sometimes just bugs come to you even when you are sleeping.
That's great. So not only I love the fact that A, you got it when you were sleeping, but B, you also noticed, right? Like, I think that's differentiation
So
between
it might
good and
have,
great.
later it came out that it was locomotive application. It might have happened to someone in this world somewhere, but like it, when it happened to me, I knew about that. I knew about cross-site scripting, so it was discovered like accidentally. Might have happened to someone else, but yeah, no, random things happen, and just happened at the right time. I noticed that I knew about it, so it just came up.
Yeah, no, that's great. Congrats. I think it's always cool to find bugs in the platforms, right? Because you're hacking the hackers, which is great.
Yeah.
um, so the last example that I wanted to talk about before we kind of switch gears off of it, but this was a phenomenal bug, and the fact that you wrote it up, you shared the knowledge was awesome. This is one of my favorite, and to be honest, I probably go back and read it like once a month, just trying to think about and deconstruct things and what that might look like in the wild. But I'm talking about the Yahoo 10K bug that you found that was reflecting everything that will allow you to steal cookies, take over people's accounts. But let's take it from the top. You talk about in the write-up, you started wanting to do Python scripting to look at the domains of Yahoo. What did that mean? Like, why Python scripting? Why not just grab a tool? How did you go down that path?
So recently I learned Python and I was already targeting Yahoo. There was so many domains and I was visiting them manually, uh, screenshotting them. Some of the screenshot programs broke for me and they were also slow. So I decided, so I wrote a very simple script which would show me only the subdomains if they were alive and if they had content other than like 200 page, and they have so even if it's a 404 or 403, the Yahoo responds with the 200 code just with the error in the page. So it used to parse the HTML, and then if it's not there it would show me. So I was just filtering out the subdomains which would really have content and which would really not. So I have here the content with the subdomains with content. So and I also filtered out subdomains which do not have any content. I sent them overnight for brute forcing while I'm sleeping, and in the morning like I have XSS on those 404, 403, and then like these I'm visiting manually, and then so it's like I was visiting every subdomain, and this came up, the premium.advertising.com. It was making a Ajax request on the api.advertising.yahoo.com. So when I saw the request reflections, so I have exploited so many course bugs before, and I mean, like I almost exploited in every program, and I have also talked about access control expose headers with my brother before, just because we saw it in some application which was nothing, and I just knew about those headers, and it was that day when the perfect scenario came up to me. I could inject headers, and I just saw the request. I could see I could inject that header and steal the cookie. It was right there. I felt like no, even if no one was either no one was there, or maybe it would be a duplicate right away. I just felt that bug going back. I just knew the course so much. I just felt it right away by going to the endpoint. It was just the filters I was working with to just get my head in there, the response. Yeah.
So for those that are listening and watching us discuss this after the fact, can you explain what that header is? Like, what does the header do?
So this so it would if the server includes that header into the response, so the browser would allow uh, uh, the header to be read by the JavaScript the server is telling in the access control expose header. So if I am able to inject that header, so I was able to inject it from the get parameter. Even if it wasn't allowed from the get parameter, I think it is exploitable. I could add it into the normal headers because it was open codes. Any subdomain, any domain on the internet was allowed to set any header, initial header, uh, which would get reflected into the a response header, but it was nothing in the page to be read. So yeah, so I could inject the header, and when I inject that header, so the browser would allow me to read whatever is in the access control expose header, which I put was cookie, to read it with XHR. So that's what I exactly did uh, on on that request. So like I also had a 30K month. So sometimes yeah, I actually want to talk about it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it wasn't the month I was going after bugs, too many bugs, and too many bugs to make 30K. I was rather regularly hunting for new type of bugs. So that month I installed a third-party application locally to get an unauthenticated SQL injection. That was my first SQL injection. So yeah, so it was right away 5K, and sometimes like you're also lucky. So I wrote that blog post, and someone came up with the endpoint with similar behavior, and but could not exploit it just because it needed a extra editing to the exploit. And even after me telling in the blog post what extra you needed, I have mentioned in the below, he could not exploit it because he did not understand uh, that exploit.
Mhm.
So I exploited it. It was another 10K, 10K, and rather I was looking for good bugs. I could make another 20K. It was 30K month. So I gave him 1,000 for coming with the endpoint. I mean, he could have taken the full 10K if he would have read my bug properly. So
Yep.
it's like I would go revisit the endpoints with the same behavior, and same bug came up multiple times in that very specific application. Yeah, you know. Yes.
Wow. That's I love that. That's awesome. And I mean, it's an important point to flag, right? Like, I get contacted by a lot of people that are just kind of like, how do I hack, or where do I go to learn? Or it's not just reading, right? It's that act of understanding, which I think you've talked about kind of all throughout this entire interview, is that you can't just like read a book and kind of, you need to take the time. You might not be finding bugs, but sit down and understand what's going on. One of the things that I try to tell people when they're starting out, and this isn't, I've just kind of discovered this advice myself, but it's needing to reprioritize your goals, right? And the goal shouldn't be dollars at the beginning. It should be learning. And so every time you sit down, if you learn something new, that's the win, not getting $100, $500,
Yeah.
1,000, what have you.
Yes. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing the details on that. That's that's awesome. Congrats on the
Yeah.
big money month. That's
Thanks.
an awesome find. There was more questions that came into mind, but now I've completely lost track because that's such a cool story. Um, so let's talk about NullCon. HackerOne did an event there, and I mean, I'll let you talk about the details, but you came out as the most valuable hacker there. What was that like?
So I'm glad I went to NullCon. It opened doors for me. It opened doors for me to the H1415 also. So at first I came to know about that the target is Yahoo, and I was quite nervous because I already have trashed Yahoo. I have been hacking Yahoo for months. So I was like, what am I gonna find in a day or two in Yahoo? So and then afterwards I came to realize that only helped me. So like I had a thing which would require accesses on any subdomain of Yahoo to do things on something particular. So I've participated before in Yahoo. I had a small XSS, so I could change them already reported. And overall, I knew Yahoo before has helped me on that event, and it was a very amazing experience. I never thought I would win the belt. Yeah, it was very amazing experience.
I mean, congrats. Like you're one of a handful of people that have MVH belt. That can't be overstated. You mentioned you decided to go. Were you ever thinking about not going to NullCon?
Yeah, I was thinking about not going to NullCon and maybe go after some time go to the DEF CON, but then I was like, it seemed to be when I checked it out, it seemed to be a very cool event, and then Hacker Holy over there, and after a few days I came to know HackerOne is going to do the live hacking event, so I decided, yeah, I would go into it, and would just go there and try to like go more socialized, and yeah.
And so the feeling of like, what are you going to find on this application when you've been hacking on it so long? I think that's a common one. You flipped it on its head. You took it and it was just kind of like, okay, if I know what I've looked at, need to think back and kind of deconstruct and look for different bugs. Was that kind of the approach that you ended up taking?
Sorry, do you mean I'm while targeting the same target?
Yeah, so because you've been working on Yahoo for a month, you found a number of bugs, but now you've got to focus on Yahoo again for the event. You said that helped you. Why did it help you?
Um, so a day before I started Recon, I knew Yahoo and the kind of bugs they accept. So and then I started the recon, started to revisit my bugs, being confused, and then I could, I told you, I already had a XSS on subdomain, which would chain with another thing on a main domain to steal data from it. So like things like that have helped me Yahoo. So so I knew Yahoo, how it reacts, how I could how it's doing the basic CSR protection or something. So like everything, every small detail was like I could deal with the endpoints little more fast and like find out small things to change them, make it big. Yeah.
Knowing the entire surface, knowing how the application worked, you were able to kind of, at least what I'm hearing in my own experience, is this is kind of abnormal behavior, this is regular behavior, and then because you could identify that, it just allowed you to go after the abnormal behavior and exploit different areas, right?
Oh, yeah, right. So yes.
That makes a lot of sense. And just like you mentioned before, like that's, if you look at kind of like the most successful hackers, and this conversation recently came up with some people I was chatting with. I don't think we have to rhyme them off, but they all talk about deep diving into an application. And this, for those that are kind of new to web hacking pro tips, this is that example, deep diving, knowing exactly how Yahoo works, what things are abnormal, what things are not. This is where the value comes. The other thing that I would add too, at least from the Shopify context too, and you touched on it, is new code is always shipping, right? So if you know the way that something works, you can identify what's been there, what hasn't been there. It helps you identify new code. Where there's new code, there's potentially new bugs. So for those listening, we ship code all the time. Companies do it continuously. Like you can't fully appreciate how much code actually gets shipped. So there's always new things to test.
Yes. So sometimes also the developers, so the endpoint I reported the bug on, so they took down the endpoint because it was too impactful, and so they completely took down the endpoint. So what I saw was without consulting the security team, developers were bringing that endpoint again back because of their some needs, and just by revisiting things I was able to exploit it again with a little more changes. Yeah, so, so they ship the same code sometimes again and again also.
Yep, that is amazing. And that's again same thing. Like there's always regressions, right? It's going to happen. So keep testing those bugs. And like on disclosures, like I can think of a handful that come to mind from HackerOne, where there was a regression that happened. I think my most recent bug on HackerOne, it was only $500, but it was just information disclosure, and it was like it took me 10, 15 minutes to find just because I was watching a response. Like I had burp open and it was like, that information shouldn't be there, but I was using the application. I knew what should be there, what shouldn't be there.
Yes.
And so that's what identified it.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome. That's great. Again, hopefully people are taking notes because this is awesome. I love this interview. So I want to talk about a conversation that kind of came up that I weighed in on. So we don't have to go into the specifics of it, but you just got a multiplier, a 2x multiplier that took a bounty of yours from $4,000 to $8,000. Did you go back after the target because there was a bonus, or like how did that play out? How did you end up getting the bonus?
So most of the time I'm selecting a programmer if I will have a too much new surface. So even if it's a small reward, I would select it. Or if or otherwise I require a very big rewards. If it's offering a big reward, I would go after it. So this company was offering a June promotion 2x multiplier on a specific feature. So they were also mentioning 3 points which they would they were most interested in. And so I found, so I read it, I found the very first point of what they were most interested in, and it was a B1 and got multiplied 2x. Yeah, so it was actually, I would like to tell, signature validation bypass on a very important endpoint, which would throw more data.
That's amazing. And yeah, that's not necessarily easy bug to find.
Yeah.
That's great. Congrats on that. That's a huge payout. And it's interesting. Like, I mean, in my mind, like that worked for the company, right? They had new functionality. They needed it tested to get the best hackers. They said, here's more money. Look specifically at this area. And what I like is that they said, here is what's critical for us. 1, 2, 3. And then you went and you found what was critical for them. So I think that's a win-win for everybody. That's awesome. Congrats on that. I'm very conscious of the fact that it's getting late for you. We've kind of been at this close to an hour. So I want to close off with a couple questions that I'm really curious about, because we've talked about it, and I feel like I'm getting to this point now. You've established this base level of knowledge, right? You are one of the smartest hackers that I've probably had on this podcast, for lack of a better term, and ones that I follow. So now that you've kind of learned these things, like where are you going to learn more? Like how are you increasing your skills now?
To learn more, I'm following great people on Twitter. I'm reading every bug. So what I do to level up, most of the times I would try new things. So there were a couple of reports from Jobbert and the source code review reports on GitLab.
Yep.
and then the bug from Orange in the GitHub Enterprise RC. So I would try to replicate them, copy them, to install it locally, to unencrypt the data, the source code, and then try to do what they did. I would also like read JavaScript more. I would try to read more JavaScript, like file descriptor from their reports. So we are all different. When we try to do things like this, we would yield different results. So most of the time when I'm trying something new, I encounter something new, or even if it's fail, I did it. I learned some more MVC, Ruby, and I just move on. It's okay, but I'm gonna get back to things. I just most of the great people in the community, I try to do that. I try to do things. That's how I try to level up something. Read more JavaScript. Yes.
Nice. That's awesome advice. I definitely see it and hear it a lot from people, but I don't think people necessarily do it. And I'm guilty of that. I talk about it, but I don't necessarily always follow through. And to be honest, like, it's so obvious. Like, the GitLab ones were great because those bugs are amazing bugs. They're amazing write-ups, and all of it's open source. So you can go grab that while it was vulnerable and go after it yourself.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, were you going to add anything?
So I was going to add to those 2x bugs. So sometimes like you wanted to ask if I feel low when if I feel like it won't be exploitable when it's when they put bonuses on the feature.
Yeah.
So after they do it, they are confident about the security. So things can be too weird sometimes, and even if they are confident, I would just without feeling without having those things in my mind, I would go check and test things. So like bugs from like Michael Rizzelman and NGA log, how many times they exploited the Flickr overflow again and again. Yeah. So like seeing those things, and even myself exploiting the same things many times in a private program, I don't like feel like it can be anything weird. So I would, even if I feel like if they are quite confident, test multiple times, I would when it's a very important functionality, very important data, I would definitely go and check it, test it. Even if it's tested multiple times, it can be anything. It can be any weird thing. So no matter how many times it's tested, no matter how much company is confident about things, so I would definitely recommend go do it, go test it. Whatever you will come up with the your particular mindset. You will come up with something new.
As you say that, like, I almost want to like stop right now and go retest things because I'm guilty of that mindset. Like, I'm there and it's kind of like, man, if a company is going to pay 2x for this particular bug, they must be super confident that that they're protected. So what's the point of actually looking at it? But I love that. Like, it's the exact same thing that Matthias talks about in his interview at one of the HackerOne events, is you have to hack like you're the first one there. And it doesn't matter kind of what's going on. And just like you said, like, I see it firsthand at Shopify. Like, we touch code all the time. Code that's been reviewed, code that's been, we think is secure, and then we go and we touch it. Or there's been a vulnerability, we address it, and then we end up changing that functionality later, or we use a third-party library for it. There's so many different ways that bugs can be introduced. So that's a great mindset to have. I need to improve mine. So it's great to hear you talk about it and you flag it for everyone listening. Doesn't matter.
Yes. So also when we get big bounties out of those bugs, we get too happy. So I was like, I think I'm reporting for a report to close down to report another bug on the same endpoint. So do go test it again and again. They introduce new bugs. Yeah.
I want to go start hacking now. So on that note, I'm curious, kind of like what's next for you? You're hacking full time. Are you going to keep doing it for the next while? Are you looking for other opportunities? What are you going to do?
So I haven't thought about anything else than full-time bug hunting. So yes, I'm gonna do full-time bug hunting for rest of the time. I've had job offers as well from Bugcrowd, but I never thought about them so seriously.
Yeah.
So also I would like to find more server-side bugs, which I want to concentrate on, and maybe new research someday. That would be my next baby. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I mean, we've gone just over an hour, I think. This was amazing. I learned a lot. I feel like I need to step back and take some notes and write something down because there's a lot in here. Particularly, I think anybody listening to this, I love the mentality that you apply to hacking. The fact that you're always going to find bugs. You're the first there. Things can kind of get rough sometimes, but take a step back. Always be learning. That's amazing. Bull, thank you so much for the time and doing the interview. I really appreciate it on behalf of everyone that's watched it.
Thank you.